Vladimir Putin has slammed America's human rights record, citing indefinite detention and sanctioned torture in overseas prisons. While speaking to journalists, the president also defended Moscow's response to Washington's decision to sanction Russian officials. RT's Igor Piskunov listened to what President Putin had to say.
The president slammed the Magnitsky Act passed recently by American lawmakers, saying that it's a continuation of a series of anti-Russian laws like the Jackson-Vanik Act, which was abolished recently. And Putin says that the US, as a country which still uses prisons like Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo, where violations of human rights happen on a daily basis, has no rights to criticize the human rights situation in Russia.
Our US partners and their lawmakers say they are concerned about human rights in our prisons. That's fine, of course, but there are plenty of issues they have themselves. Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, where for years people have been detained without charge. It's inconceivable. Prisoners walk around in chains like in the Middle Ages. They've legalized torture inside their own country. If something like that happened here, it would cause an international outcry. But it all remains quiet in the US. We've heard plenty of promises to close Guantanamo, but it's still there. It's still operating. Maybe there is still torture going on there. Secret CIA prisons. Has anyone been brought to account? And they're pointing at our problems. Well, thank you, we're aware of that. Making this the ground for passing anti-Russian laws, it's something absurd, and we have in no way provoked such action.
Russian lawmakers are currently working on what they say will be a proportionate response to the Magnitsky Act, and part of the plan is to introduce a ban for Americans to adopt Russian children. This has been causing quite a lot of debate in Russia, and the president has commented on that, saying that adoption, and the problem with it is that it's not even the cases of abuse of Russian children adopted by American foster parents, but the lack of a proper legal reaction from American authorities to prevent them from reoccurring, including the lack of serious punishments. In light of the anti-government protests, which have been continuing for around a year now, the president was also asked a question implying that he's managed to build an authoritarian regime in the country during his time in power. Let's listen to the president's reply.
I believe that we've provided stability, which is the prerequisite for the development of our country. I believe it's a very important thing. But I wouldn't call it authoritarian. I can't agree with such an opinion. The most prominent example that proves my point was my decision to take to the sidelines after 2 terms as president. If I thought that totalitarian or authoritarian systems would be the most preferable for our country, I'd just change the constitution.
Another issue touched upon at the conference was Russia's stance on the conflict in Syria. The president has stressed once again that Moscow does not support President Assad's regime, but it also doesn't want to see Syria drown in chaos and a civil war for the next 2 years. Vladimir Putin says it's only up to the Syrian people to decide what sort of a political future they want and whom they want to see in control of their country.
We are not concerned about the faith of Assad's regime. We understand what's going on there. The family has been in power for 40 years, and undoubtedly there's demand for change. But we're concerned about what happens next in the country. We just don't want ongoing strife between today's opposition, if it takes power, and the current government, if they become the opposition. This can't go on forever.
Now, on a lighter note, Putin has also denied speculation that he's been experiencing some problems with his health, and has also answered a question which is bothering millions of people right now about the end of the world. Well, the Russian president says he knows when the world will end. According to him, it'll happen in a few billion years when the sun stops shining. So these are some of the more serious and less serious issues touched upon at the conference, which lasted around 4.5 hours, continuing the president's tradition of these extended press marathons, and included over 1,200 journalists from different parts of Russia and from abroad.